What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of Bogey Free. We are coming to you with some NFL Week 9 action, and I am joined, as always, by Steve Halupka. You can find him on Twitter at The Real Halupka. What's going on tonight, Steve?
Other man just pouring a 40 out for my boy Deshaun Watson.
Oh, I know. We're gonna really spend a bunch of time on that. So, before we get into our friend, our fallen friend Deshaun, I do want to introduce. We have a guest on tonight, Logan Harper. If you've listened to us before, Logan's been on for the Golf Pod in the past. So it's good to have you back, Logan. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I had a great time on the golf podcast. It's kind of my sport of choice, but I also do ownership projections for FanShare for football, and can talk a little football as well.
Yeah, and I just had to pull an audible real quick. I was going to say your Twitter handle, and then I remembered that you changed it recently, so I just had to pull it up. So it's Logan Harper 22 now, right? It used to be there was a G in there, and
yeah, it was confusing. It's all good.
So we're good. It's Logan Harper 22. You can find him on Twitter. So why don't we quickly touch on some of the news today? Deshaun Watson, non-contact injury, torn ACL, out for the season. I guess in Clemson, it was the left knee, and now it's the right knee, if I
think that's
correct
right.
in that. So, not great news, obviously. It was just the nut matchup this week. For DFS purposes, it's terrible. For his purposes, after the start he got off to, it's terrible. So, Logan, I'll kick it to you. I know you're thoroughly disappointed. So why don't you?
I'm from Houston. I'm from Houston. I'm a lifelong Texans fan ever since they were founded in 2003 or whenever, and I was pretty bitter Houston Texans fan. Just over time, you kind of grow, and it's just like we've got JJ Watt, we've got a good team all the time, but it never really works out because we never have a quarterback. And then look, you finally hit magic with Deshaun Watson, nail the pick, and he looks like the offensive rookie of the year, top 5 quarterback, and it's just devastating. This offense, like you said, was the nut matchup this week. They putting up some of the most points on DK and out of this offense, I should say, out of any team, and just really throws the slate off and just throws the Texans season down the drain pretty much. They bring in Matt McGloin as the backup. So I don't know how that's going to help.
How the hell did that even happen? Like there was like a 10-minute gap between I don't know if you saw my tweet. I was did he was he just in the parking lot? Like, what's happening? How did they sign him like before? It seemed like it was immediate. Like it was the wildest thing. But Steve, I'll kick it over to you for a sec. What are your thoughts now, sort of generally on this slate? Do you think that this just completely causes turmoil and this is going to be like a wild week, or do you think? I mean, you don't have to get into specifics yet, but do you think that this sort of leads to like just different chalk and we're pretty solid here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to obviously change lineup construction a lot. You're going to switch and pivot to a couple other plays now, I think, and we'll talk in the receiver section more. Guys like Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins obviously are still in an awesome spot against Indy, but you're maybe not playing them in all of your cash lineups if you're making multiple cash lineups. There's going to be some pivots here, and we'll get to them. But, I think it does change how this slate works out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, before we completely dive in, we do have to do our custom. This is not just, Logan, I'm telling you, it's not just because I won this week. We do this every week. We got a little 30-man listener league, so just real quick, breaking down the lineup. I ended up with this was such a donkey move by me. Like I had such a shit week and like it was just so bad. And I'm like, I have all this conviction that Seattle is just gonna go ham. Mm-hmm. And like out of my 20 lineups on in the play action, I'm like, I just completely whiffed. I don't understand. Like this was by far my best lineup. I went Wilson and Baldwin and ran it back with Fuller, which obviously Baldwin wasn't even like the smash play on Seattle. And I had a couple of like real duds, right, with Smallwood. Brayton Cooper didn't really do a hell of a lot. I kind of got a little lucky with Travis Benjamin, and I had McCoy. So that's kind of how it worked. I did want to talk to you guys about the Cowboys because at least in this contest, there were only 2 of us that played the Cowboys out of the 30 of us, which I thought was interesting because all morning you see three linemen from Washington aren't going to be playing. It's shit weather. So what were your guys' thoughts? I guess I'll kick it to you first, Logan. Like how, and I guess more generally, like, is that something that you're factoring in when you hear that news? Were you on the Cowboys? Like how do you go about defenses? Because I think it's important.
Yes, I mean, if there's a clear discrepancy there where you think you got a clear advantage, I will play the Cowboys, for example. If there isn't, then I'll generally kind of try to fade the chalk and kind of just go for something that looks like a decent matchup, yet might not be getting that many fan share tags, just because it is the most volatile of the kind of positions. It's the most variant. So I guess if there's something that's just like kind of clear sticking out to me like that, I'll play that defense. But if not, I'll try to go for kind of a defense that's strong that might not be getting as much buzz on fan share.
Right, and I think that makes some sense. I feel like, Steve, I guess I could get your thoughts on this too. I feel like this year especially, I mean, I don't have any like data to back it up, but I feel like this year especially, there's been a couple of slates that have just been completely decided by defense this year, more than usual. Do you kind of agree, or I mean, just kind of normal?
You're 100% right. I mean, you have like a couple weeks ago with the Bears, D scoring 2 touchdowns. I mean, plays like that just completely flip how scoring ends up, especially in large GPPs. Like, so completely agree with your thoughts there, Matt. And if there are just glaring matchup issues, so like you said, Washington was out 3 offensive linemen. If there's a spot where an offensive line is starting 3 or 4 backups, or we know there's a phenomenal pass rush against a really shitty pass blocking offensive line, like that's a spot you have to attack. And then also you got to look at turnover rate too by offenses. So if you're facing a high turnover rate offense, that's normally a good spot for a D to rack up some points.
Right. And I think it's also important. Like, I think a lot of people get caught up in over-unders and spreads and things like that when they're going to choose their Ds. And I think that can be sort of a mistake, because realistically, how many points are you getting based on points allowed? Like, it's all about turnovers. Mm-hmm. And I think the general consensus for like people who aren't completely like tuned in is just sort of, oh, this team doesn't look like they're going to score that many points, so let me play the defense against them. But that's not always the best play.
At FanShare, we definitely find that that's kind of trending to kind of the top tags, and like I said, that's where I'll definitely kind of move away if you don't see those turnover ratios and you see that kind of at a less expected chalk defense where you kind of actually do have that turnover expectancy. That's exactly right. That's where you kind of try to leverage.
Absolutely. So, why don't we dive right into week 9? I guess we have to. I mean, we can continue the conversation on Watson. He was highest priced quarterback, best matchup on the slate, and now, I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and I can't even find Tom Savage. I think he's 4,600, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4,600. So, is this even worth touching, or is this just you're getting away from this game entirely, Logan?
I've seen a lot of Tom Savage. I say a lot. I've seen every snap he's played, and this year at least, he played that first half against the Jags, which we now know is actually, it was a really good defense. They may have the best defense in the league, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think overall he's still he's a below average quarterback. I think, he's got that cheap price, but I think there's a lot of uncertainty as how he's going to play, and I think this team just might be in shock. I'm not gonna touch him this week.
Yeah. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, you can't trust the Macho Man in this one. I'm not digging Tom Savage this week. It's such a great spot too. Like, we were all hyped up for this drubbing that Houston was going to put on Indy. They lose Malik Hooker. They're just a mess on defense. But yeah, I can't touch him even at 4,600.
I think there's a few other options in that price range. You can get, I think Jared Goff's like $1,000 more, $900 more, and you've got at least proven point scoring from him versus 4,600 for Tom Savage. We have no clue. Black box.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I would be if he was $5K, like it's just $400, but my like dumb monkey brain can't get around. I'm like 4,600, huh? Like this sounds pretty damn tempting. I know that I can't and shouldn't, but I probably not in cash, obviously, but I probably will have some exposure to him just because 4,600 is against the Colts. Like I feel like I could throw like for at least 225 and a touchdown against the Colts. So like why the hell not?
I'd like to see that.
So I'd probably die immediately. I'd be like not able to walk for like 3 weeks. But as we so if we're not going to go against Indy, you mentioned Logan, you mentioned Goff, who I'm pretty high on this week as well, despite my Giants fandom.
Yeah,
do you think he's cash viable there?
I do. I think the Giants are just not great this year, and I think they've got a pretty good point total. And I think they've proven they can put up points this year on offense. They've got a dynamic player in Gurley, and they're able to throw the ball. They put up a 40 spot on that Thursday night football game. I think it's a good matchup. While it's on the road, I think if you are gonna try to save at the quarterback spot, that's where I would do it.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anybody else that you're targeting for cash, Steve?
For me, I mean, the only other game I'm really taking a look at for cash plays and it's a little bit higher on the slate, it's that Dallas-Kansas City matchup. So I think Dak and Alex Smith are both cash viable this week. Huge over-under at 42.5, and it's a pick 'em. So, and both pass defenses have not been great this year. Looking to pay up, I'd say those are two of your best options. But in terms of value, I think Goff's really going to eat this week without Janoris Jenkins on the Giants secondary. It's going to be a mess back there.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, the Giants are just in complete disarray. Like people just aren't showing up to practice. It's like a junior high football team. Like somebody
got kicked out of practice.
Yeah, it's so wild, man. It's just so tilting watching all this nonsense as a Giants fan because I had such different expectations for how this year was going to go. But I also think I don't know. I think that Cam makes a little bit of sense this week in some tournaments maybe.
I really like that game, the Falcons versus Panthers game in GPPs this week. So as we'll see, kind of going down the line here, the other positions. But so I do like Cam and Matt Ryan as kind of GPP plays. They're both only 6 and 2 start tags respectively on fan share versus Prescott's got about 20. And last year they put up it was 48 to 33 in the first game and 33 to 16 the two games between these two teams. Obviously different teams and different coordinators, but I think division teams, they kind of know each other's tendencies. I think they're gonna be able to put up points in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And going along with that also, just you mentioned the fan share tags. Drew Brees is also, I guess now technically he's second in start tags for QBs because Watson's obviously not going to play. But Steve, what are your thoughts on the New Orleans game this week?
I mean, it's looking good, man. Like Tampa in the Dome, you would expect Brees to smash here, but their offensive game plan's changed. They can actually stop people on defense. They've run the ball a boatload with both Ingram and Kamara. And we'll see how that split is now after the fumbles from Ingram. But you won't, unless this becomes a shootout and Jameis just, figures it out, you don't expect Brees to throw the ball more than like 30 times, which in the past that would sound absolutely crazy, but this year it's completely different. So viable, but not for cash games.
It's a 7-point spread, and it could turn into a blowout where they're running the ball with those two backs that are running the ball well this year, like you said. So there's a potential for that to kind of get out of hand.
Yeah, especially with Jameis, it just doesn't seem right. The shoulder injury that he has seems to be holding him back a little bit. And I'm a huge Jameis guy, but I'm just it's so hard. I mean, how are they going to keep up if he can't throw? How are they going to even compete in that game? I don't know. But since we're talking about that game, we can shoot over to running backs real quick, and we can start there, I guess, right, with Ingram and Kamara. I feel like they're getting a little closer in price now. Kamara's bumped up a little bit to 6,300. Ingram's at 7,600 this week. So, Steve, are you thinking that either of these guys are cash or just GPP? What are your thoughts?
I'm actually liking Kamara a lot with the savings that you get from Ingram. You're pricing it down, like you said, 6,300 now for Kamara. And with the uncertainty around the fumbles with Ingram, you don't know how Sean Payton's going to react to that. So I think you're looking for a safer play. I think it is Kamara, but Ingram and GPPs is certainly viable.
Yeah, it's hard for me to justify Ingram at 7,600 with the split versus, you got Gurley, who's got the lion's share of the load for the Rams at 8,100, only $500 more. So I'm on the same boat. I'd rather pay up there for Gurley, and then if I'm going to take the savings, go down to Kamara and hope he gets a bunch of catches.
Yeah, for sure. I think just going off of what you're saying, I think the Rams onslaught makes a lot of sense this week because it's going to be a disaster. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to watch that whole game. I might just stick with Red Zone because I can't deal with the Giants any longer, honestly. So what are we paying all the way up for Zeke? Are we going with Hunt? Steve, are you touching that? I know you said quarterbacks in cash. Are you thinking running backs in cash in that game, or is the spread sort of getting you off those two?
No, I mean, Hunt's always intriguing just because he's getting some of that pass game volume. I would rather play Gurley at 81 and save some cash there. Especially, again, these weeks I feel like they're always tight with DraftKings pricing. I think Gurley is the more optimal play just because, again, his passing game prowess this year, they've really involved him. And the New York Giants can't stop the middle of the field, so expect Gurley, maybe run some angle routes out of the backfield. The Giants linebackers have always been just poor in pass coverage as well. So I'd much rather play Gurley than either Hunt, I think, this week.
Yeah. Logan, how about you? Are you paying all the way up for those two, or are you staying a little cheaper?
I like paying up for running back in general this week, but I think that Gurley, Fournette, Hunt range I'm kind of just really going to pin down on. I think Fournette, I'm going to monitor the ankle. I think he's had, the bye week to get healthy here. And I'm hoping he comes off the bye pretty strong, pretty refreshed, and, gets back to his old ways against the Bengals here. And then if I'm going to pay down, I think, like I said, I kind of like McCaffrey and the Panthers as a kind of a GPP play. He's rising up there in tags, and I've kind of been getting turned on him a bit, but I'm going to try to they've been giving him the volume and see if he can finally make something do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice when you can get a slot receiver for at the running back spot on DraftKings because
6,500. So yeah,
it's like he's seeing 25% of the targets. Like crazy. Atlanta's giving up 7 catches on 9 targets to running backs this year. Like it seems like the perfect fit this week. And if you've ever read anything that I've written or listened to anything that I've ever said about running backs, I hate Christian McCaffrey. So again, for me to be on him is even more of a stamp of approval, I think. Speaking of that game, Devontae Freeman, I know, was put in a limited practice yesterday. He seems a little banged up. It doesn't seem like he's in danger of missing necessarily. Because, he is getting limited work in, but just something to monitor as the week goes on. And another guy I wanted to bring up was Lamar Miller as well, because, it just, again, seems like, I don't know, is there any way that the Colts compete even without Watson playing for Houston this week? I don't know. What are your thoughts? It seems like, Logan, I think they've been giving him the ball a little bit more recently. And he seems to be, his floor seems to be rising. So what are your thoughts on Lamar?
Yeah, no, this is a really tough situation. He's first in tags and starts for running backs. And it's unclear kind of how this Deshaun Watson situation is going to affect this. Obviously, we're not going to retroactively take away tags after this, but we can kind of monitor that situation, how kind of the late tags come in here. But regardless, I think, you would naturally think that the Texans might try to run the ball a bit more here. And, if they can't stop him by stacking the box and Tom Savage can't do anything, he might put up a good game against a trash defense. So I think he's a good play, but there's definitely some risk just given the offense could stall out, and he's going to be one of the higher-owned guys.
How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, Indy's given up the most rushing touchdowns of any team in the league so far to running backs with 8 on the season. So, I mean, it's been they've been giving up the big plays here with against running backs. So I do like the spot here. We do think that game plan is going to change. Swapping from Watson down to gosh, Tom Savage is such garbage. But yeah, I mean, Miller also he's been involved in the passing game too. So, and you would expect Savage not to be taking as many deep shots to Will Fuller and really just dumping the ball to try to move the chain. So, I think Miller. I wouldn't play him in cash necessarily, but I do think you're playing almost anybody in this Houston offense in a GP. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we also have to remember, like, we're not very far removed from TJ Yeldon, like, just going ham on the Colts a couple weeks ago. So if
like 10 carries, it's crazy.
If TJ Yeldon can do it, I think that Lamar Miller can approach value here in this game. Outside of that, Logan, is there anybody in this sort of like under 6K range that you're going to be targeting for GPPs?
No, as I was saying, I really like paying up at running back this week, and I think there's a lot of guys down here, like the Miami guys, and like McFadden was getting some buzz with the whole Zeke situation. But anyways, I think these guys down here, it's just too much uncertainty, and I really like the certainty of the guys at the top.
Yeah. How about you, Steve?
My only other thought in a GPP might be Carlos Hyde. This is going to be an ugly game, Arizona and San Francisco, and Hyde's floor, especially as a pass catcher, has been there every single week. He's seen at least 6 targets, I believe, in 6 of 8 games. So his floor is there, and he's got a chance to score some touchdowns because, gosh, without Pierre Garçon now in this San Francisco offense, they're just running out of playmakers. So I expect them to feed Hyde steadily in this matchup against Drew Stanton and the Cardinals.
Yeah, definitely. And before we head over to the wide receivers, Joe Mixon has that 32nd ranked rush DVOA, even though I despise him, and he really got lucky last week to even score like anything. Mm-hmm. Is there any confidence there for you, Steve?
None whatsoever. It's just, again, they're giving ceremonial first carries to Jeremy Hill. Like, if that's still the case, I can't.
Well, they have to let Mixon see what's going on. Did you hear that quote? Like, just the dumbest shit that I've ever heard in my life. They're like, yeah, we let him watch from the sideline to see what happens. Like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know. That whole organization is ridiculous.
It's a mess. It's a total mess. I'm shocked. To be honest, I'm shocked Marvin Lewis still has a job.
That's true.
Yeah, and we could have been saying that probably like a few years ago, and he's just still there. He's like a cockroach. So, anybody else that you wanted to touch on, Logan, or you think we can shoot over to wide receivers?
I think that's it. I think Buck Allen's getting a few tags here, and he's kind of starting to split with Collins there in Baltimore. So I think another one of those uncertain situations where I don't trust it.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, I'm deciding between the two of them in season long, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, to be clear, it's Collins actually. I just saw Collins is in the top 10 in tags and at 4,600 versus Allen just a few $100 more. And I think Collins is a stay away if he's going to be chalk for me at 4,600 because I don't trust his role in the offense yet.
Yeah, and I mean, are they going to win 40-0 again this week? Like. Exactly. I don't know if that's within their range of outcomes. And that,
I think there's definitely going to be a different game script this week.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. I don't get a lot of things right, but I think I'll get that one right. All right, so as we head over to wide receivers, this is just going to be – we might as well just be like a Texans podcast for right now. Right. With Hopkins, I mean, he's 9,200. I looked it up before. With Savage, he's averaged 12 targets, 103 yards, and half a touchdown in 6 games. So, I mean, there's definitely something there. I don't know if with just like from a target perspective, but 9,200 is like outrageous with Savage, right, Logan?
I'm still in on Hopkins. I'm very, very, very out on Fuller. especially at 7,000. I think, he really needed Watson to make plays and to, he obviously is a speedster, but to get him the ball and deliver him the ball way downfield, his, A dot is huge. His average depth of, reception or of target. And, he had the 59-yard touchdown pass that basically went, that full distance, and he had a close to a 40-yard touchdown last week. So he was really relying on his speed plus Watson delivering the ball, whereas Hopkins – and I don't think Savage can do that, is basically what I'm saying. But I think Savage can get Hopkins those, possession routes, those 10-yard outs, and maybe get a lucky fade into the end zone. I think he's going to get up there. I think up to maybe 12 targets this week. I think he's really going to lock in on his trusty, blanket and Hopkins. And I definitely think I'm going to play him in GPPs because I think people will jump off of him at that high price because Watson's out, and I think he's got a potential for a big game still.
How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I think it's a GPP play. Especially with pricing this week, if we're paying up a running back, we have to sacrifice somewhere.
Right.
And I think a receiver in cash, we kind of have to stay away from Hopkins. I think he's a fade in cash. But yeah, GPPs, I love your point. It's people are going to be completely off him now, and with the Watson injury, and especially after with his price being so high. So yeah, I love the call on GPP.
All right, so we got that sorted out for Houston. What else are we doing, I guess sort of in between those guys? We have Julio, Mike Evans, AJ Green, and Michael Thomas all between 7,200 and 7,800. Steve, are we even able to afford any of these guys for cash, or do we have to even go a little bit lower?
I think we might have to go lower. I think Thomas, to me, is the most intriguing out of this group. Evans is probably going to face Lattimore, and Lattimore has been absolutely filthy this year and shutting down opposing receivers. He's been so good. AJ Green's got the combination of Bouye and Jalen Ramsey on the outside, and Julio just hasn't been the same yet. But Michael Thomas is, going to be facing that putrid Buck secondary at home. So I like him the most out of anyone in that group, but I think you're probably paying down for someone like Des Bryant or Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. How about you, Logan? If we're going under Fuller, out of those 6K guys, who are you locking in for cash?
So 6K guys. I mean, Dez obviously is the chalk of the week. I like him at 6,400. Other than that, I'm kind of staying away here. I don't really like that Oakland game, and I think I'm going to keep going down, get some savings. I'm going to be paying up at running back a lot.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. And I don't know. I do think that I don't know. There's a case to be made to sort of fade Dez in GPPs just for the ownership that he's probably going to see. I don't think that's like a 0% thing, obviously, but I do think being a little bit underweight isn't the worst thing in the world for GPP purposes, and just hoping that game goes, a little bit different than Vegas is seeing it as of right now. And I'll never
be clear. I like him in cash there. I agree.
Yeah, for sure. I think cash for the ownership makes sense, and GPP fade for the ownership makes sense. And then as we keep going down, who are the value guys that you're targeting, Steve? What are you looking at for cash?
Yeah, if we're moving down just a bit, Devin Funch is at 5,400 now against Atlanta. Atlanta's secondary's been garbage this whole year. And obviously with the departure of Kelvin Benjamin, you're looking for Funches and the rookie Curtis Samuel to really take a ton of targets along with Christian McCaffrey. And as we go down a bit further, we have the injury to Pierre Garçon. So, of course, Adam Levitan's favorite, Lord Aldrich, will be in play. I believe he's 4K this week. So he's in play at 4K against Arizona. We don't think he'll be locked down by Patrick Peterson, which is always a good sign.
Right.
And then I want to bring up some of the Rams guys. So obviously they're playing the Giants without What?
You know what I'm about to say.
You're going to say Sammy Watkins, aren't you?
It's Sammy Watkins week, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I called this when they were in London. I said, give him one more game, and then his price is going to keep staying low, and this is the spot. This is it. It's going to be great.
It's like now or never for Sammy Watkins this week. Yeah. Like no Janoris Jenkins. My only concern is just he doesn't see targets. Like his target volume is so low in this offense. Like Cooper Kupp is seeing almost double the targets of Sammy Watkins, which is just travesty. but it's the case
for some reason, Goff and Kupp just have a really strong connection. I'm not sure what it is, but he's just always looking his way for whatever reason.
Didn't they like live together in the offseason or something like that? Kupp like bunked up with him and before training camp. Yeah, so it's some weird connection like that, like you were saying.
I don't. It's just Sammy week. I'm so excited. I'm gonna make all the money this week on Sammy. It's gonna be great. 4,200. Like, come on, that guy. It's ridiculous. They have to, after the bye week, they have to look and just be like, this was stupid. Why are we not throwing it to Sammy Watkins? Like, he's finally healthy for once in his goddamn career, and we're not even using him. Like, what are we doing here?
I know, it's crazy.
But yeah, I think you can mix and match any of the Rams receivers with Goff in stacks, because I just think it's going to be a bloodbath. Honestly, I can't believe I have to watch that goddamn game. But other than that, in this range, so are you thinking cash for one of those guys, Steve, or are you just saying for GPPs?
The only one I would think about, just because his target volume's up there, is Kupp and cash. I think Woods and Watkins are both GPP plays. One more, or kind of set up teammates I did want to bring up, were the Jags guys. They're super cheap. I mean, Marquise Lee's 3,900. That's like insanely cheap, and Alan Hearns is 4,100. So we know where the targets go in Jacksonville. It goes to those two guys, and then Leonard Fournette out of the backfield. Any thoughts about those two players?
What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, I like a few different guys in this range. I'm looking for that game to be kind of more on the ground with Fournette. I think Cincinnati's line is going to give up a lot of rushing yards. So I actually like, in that same range, Paul Richardson from Seattle a lot more at 4,700. I think Seattle against Washington. I think Baldwin is going to be locked down. By what's his name? Washington's shutdown corner. And
we're going to play this week. Do we know?
Yeah. Regardless, if he's not playing, even better. And I think Richardson on the other side there, kind of roll a good week last week into this week, and hopefully the offense there can keep rolling for Seattle.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go down here. I think that I don't know. I guess the prevailing thought that Peterson is just going to play a side this week against San Francisco since Garcon is out. Do you think, Steve?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, if you're going to put Patrick Peterson just on Aldrick Robinson the entire game, I feel like that's a waste. No offense to Aldrick Robinson, but
I mean, kind of.
He could definitely lock down a whole side. Yeah.
Some slight offense to Lord Aldrick,
but small.
But yeah, so I mean, if that's going to be the case, and they're going to move the two of them around in Goodwin and Robinson, then I think you can take a couple of shots there, just because somebody's got to catch a ball there, right? In theory. Right. I mean, I don't know what the hell's going on there. But with Garcon out, somebody has to get a target from the wide receiver. So that makes sense. And I think Jacksonville makes the Jacksonville receivers make a little bit of sense too. Just because, like, why not? Right? Like, we've seen them score some points here and there in spurts, and we've seen them do pretty well, and they're dirt cheap this week. Mm-hmm. The one situation that I did want to bring up also before we move on to tight ends, are we doing anything with Tennessee? I mean, Corey Davis is back. Decker seems washed, but I don't know, maybe Rashard Matthews is there. Like, all these guys are cheap, right? Like, I feel like there has to be something going on there, or is it just a complete stay away because of that secondary for you, Logan?
Yeah, it's tough. I think, they're 3.5-point favorites, 43-point total there. I think I would consider Rashard, but it's like you said, tough secondary. It probably be one of my last cuts there.
Yeah, it's kind of gross, right, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Smith's been just absolutely locking down guys the entire year. Yeah. He's been so good. I think he's like one of the top 2 graded corners according to Pro Football Focus. And Davis coming back off the injury, of course, you expect him to be 100%, but you can't really know that for sure. And to your point before, Matt, I mean, Decker just looks like he's 55 out there running routes. So yeah, I think I'm fading those. My only thought would maybe in a GPP lineup is throwing some DeMarco Murray out there. just because the Ravens' run defense hasn't been as good as their pass defense this year.
Yeah. And then outside of that, are there any other plays that you're considering? I don't think we mentioned Larry Fitzgerald, but I do think he makes some sense. Like his splits with Drew Stanton are like kind of outrageous. He has like what I think I saw something. It was like a 40% market share last time that he had any sort of run there. So I don't hate that in a tournament just to see what happens.
I think one situation we didn't talk about was kind of the Carolina wide receiver situation with, Samuel and Shepard at 3,100 there. Like if we're paying up at running back, they could be, some flyer GPP plays, only 2 and 1 start call respectively between the two of them. I think Shepard's going to be the number 2 wide receiver from what I heard last. And, if he definitely has that upside, if he's going to be the number 2 receiver in the game with potentially stacked with Cam.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. That's it's a ton of savings for somebody who could see some, meaningful targets this week. So, I mean, we got to talk about tight ends, even though it's my sort of least favorite thing to do in the world. But we have Ertz and Kelsey up. Again, we have a little bit of a gap, right? Like last week it was worse. It was like 7,100, 7,000, and then like 4,500 on the main slate. And this week, we have Ertz at 6,800 and Kelsey at 6,700. And Steve, you said that you like this Kansas City-Dallas game. Are you gonna have some Kelsey shares? What's going on there?
No, it definitely has some Kelsey shares. Just he's so involved in this offense right now. It's clearly Alex Smith's number 1 target, and he's a matchup nightmare for anyone out there. I don't care if Jalen Smith or Sean Lee's playing; doesn't make a difference. Kelsey's he's such a freak right now and playing some of the best football of his career so far. I mean, it seems like he's got his head on right for once, and not just drawing personal foul after personal foul out there. So yeah, I'm in on Travis Kelsey, and then on the lower end, I'm definitely in on Vernon Davis. Like Jamison Crowder might miss against Seattle now. Earl Thomas might miss this game. This is lined up for Vernon Davis at 4,100 to be. Dare I say, a bit chalky this week?
Logan, what are your thoughts on the how do you think the ownership's going to shake out with Vernon Davis?
I think Doyle is going to get a bit more ownership than Davis, but I think they're both going to be pretty heavily owned. I think so. I guess Vernon's at 10 start tags to Doyle's 17, and I kind of think people will be paying down a bit here to that range and kind of split it between the two. That being said, I just can't get past Doyle at that 4,300 number, even though I think he's going to be chalk. 14 targets last week, 12 receptions. He's consistently getting these targets, and I think even though Texans lost to Deshaun Watson, I think they're still going to be down and passing the ball, and I think it's a good spot for Doyle still. So.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. So I think, looking at this right now, it's just very simple in GPPs. I'm just going to have all the Tyler Kroft.
There you go.
I think that's a good, decent pivot. Obviously, Jacksonville has been excellent against, on the perimeter against wide receivers, but I have them 18th against the tight end on, how I rank the defenses. So that could be interesting. Just as, sort of a GPP pivot. I do think we can talk about Ingram too, because I think he was reasonably popular for a little bit there. It seemed like he was really going to get involved. He has a ton of tags on FanShare right now. He's right up there with Kelsey. But are you, Steve? Are you concerned at all with the matchup here?
I mean, Evan Ingram, he's such a vital part of that Giants, whatever left of that offense there is. It's going to be him and Sterling Shepard the entire game, probably against the Rams. It's a tough matchup per se. I don't think Alec Ogletree has been as good as advertised in coverage this year. So especially with Ingram being one of the fastest tight ends in the league, right. I do think he'll do okay even against Ogletree or Mark Barron. But for 56, I think there are safer options, like you mentioned, Jack Doyle. And then if you're going to pay up for 67 at 6,700 for Kelsey, I'd rather go with those two options than really roster anyone on this Giants offense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then Logan, are there any other tight ends that are jumping out at you?
I mean, if you're really pressed for cost savings, Ed Dickson, on 5 targets or more each of the past 4 games. He's not able to find the end zone, which partially because, Cam ends up running it in a lot, or I don't even know what the issue is. So they're not really targeting the tight end in the red zone as much with Olsen out. But there's a chance for some regression there, and maybe he'll get some red zone looks. But at 3,100 with five targets or more on average past 4 weeks, he's definitely a consideration if you're really trying to save.
Yeah, for sure. And as usual, it's just like tight end is so gross. It's just like you can take some shots, and if you just get lucky and match it up with the right rest of your lineup, you're in pretty good shape. If you catch a tight end who scores a touchdown, even it seems like they're in the top 10, right? Like I was watching Red Zone on Sunday, and I was looking, and it was like the 8th ranked tight end only had like 30 yards and a touchdown. Like you don't need a hell of a lot to be a good tight end. So there's some decent plays like we mentioned, but overall I think it makes a lot of sense to sort of spread out and go a little bit away from the ownership unless it's just like a complete slam dunk. So after that, we gotta hit some stacks. So what are we, Steve? I guess I'll start with you. What are we? And Robbie Anderson just scored a touchdown as we speak. My boy Robbie. What are we targeting for some GPP stacks this week?
Yeah, I'm game stacking Casey Dallas. Like I think you could really have a nice combination of players in there. From Dak and Dez, you could go Smith and Hill and Kelsey. If you want to do something a little bit different, you can go like Dak and Kareem Hunt, and then run it back with Dez also. Like that could be an interesting stack for that game. A little different action in there as well. I'm really loving that game with a huge over/under total. Let's see, what else did we talk about? We talked about the Carolina-Atlanta game as well. I think Cam and Funchess would be mine. If I'm picking the stack in that game, Cam and Funchess, I would go with those two.
You get a lot of cost savings with Funchess there, and I think I agree. I think that's a good stack. So I'm on board with that game. I love a lot of different permutations from the Carolina Atlanta game, but my favorite stack is Gurley with the Rams defense there against the Giants. I think Eli's turnover prone, as you probably know, and I think they can get put in some good spots for Gurley to take advantage of, and you got to get that little small but correlation there. So.
And real quick, I do want to just throw this out there. As far as sort of quarterback tight end stacking, I don't know. I think that you could throw in Coby Fleener and Drew Brees into one lineup. They haven't been great against Tampa Bay hasn't been great against the tight end either. And if people are going to be, playing that game, I don't know how much, ownership Coby Fleener is going to see. So I think that's worth just like one lineup, just nothing crazy. It's 2,700. Like, what the hell is he costing you, right? Like 2,700 is nothing, and you can get a lot of different guys. We've talked about savings to tonight. So 2,700, you can't really beat that. So just a really super low owned thought there as well. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think we're pretty good. This was a quick episode, but I think we hit on all the things we needed to hit on. Anything we forgot?
We talk about DSTs at all?
Oh, right. My even less favorite thing than tight ends. So Steve, why don't you kick us off? Any chalky D's that we're looking at?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. Again, if Washington's offensive line isn't playing, you're playing Seattle. I think they're really nice play at home. I like Philly a lot playing at home against Denver for 3,300. We're getting Brock Osweiler this week, the human statue. So he will be there in the pocket just getting waylaid play after play, and is, of course, turnover prone as well. So I'm in on that. If you want to pay up a bit more, Jacksonville has just been sacking fools right and left. I mean, they had a 10-sack game this year. And the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line might be the worst in football. So you can, if you want to pay up all the way, and I would go with Jacksonville's D at 38.
What are your thoughts, Logan?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I do like the Rams there as a kind of pivot. I think the Jags and the Eagles are going to be pretty chalky based on kind of what I'm seeing on FanShare. I do like the Eagles though. I think against Brock, like you had to trust me. I had to watch Brock for a full season, and he, like you said, is going to be a statue, just taking sacks left and right. But with my more contrarian team, or kind of if I'm going to try to be more contrarian than that spot, maybe the Rams, and then I do like the Seahawks as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just randomly click on defenses as I'm building my play action portfolio and everything else. I just kind of mix and match a little bit here and there. But I mean, the Jaguars are like obvious.
One really sneaky play is just going against just blindly going against Blake Bortles with Cincinnati. He can toss a few pick six in his day, and that's a super contrarian play, I guess, if you're trying to go that route and potentially save some money there. Bengals are 2,800, so.
Yeah, I mean you don't even need a ton from 2,800 to just hit value and move on and use the savings to get on another good play from the skill position. So I think that works. Anybody else? I feel like that's where I'm going to be limiting my stuff. Like, as long as I can afford Jacksonville, it's just going to be like 60%, 70% Jacksonville, because that's going to be that. There's going to be so many sacks in that game. Like, Andy Dalton should just be like investing in ice right now, because it's going to be bad. All right, so I think that just about does it. Make sure that you guys are following along on Twitter for the rest of the week, because things do change. We have some potential injuries, guys that might be missing time. Make sure that you follow Logan at Logan Harper 22 to keep up to date on all the FanShare tags, ownership projections, et cetera, and for golf too. Don't forget about golf. We still got some golf going right now.
Yeah, the golf ownership model I send out every week, and it's been spot on. So make sure to follow me for that. And if you haven't signed up, sign up for FanShare Sports, because the ownership projections right now are still kind of beta. So we've been sending them to our newsletter. So that's the only way to get them right now, and should be kind of full force blasting that out on Twitter and the website coming soon. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not already subscribed to FanShare and you've been listening to me rave about FanShare for this long, then I don't entirely understand what you're doing. Because
if you are signed up, then check the newsletter, because that's where you'll find the NFL projections. So a lot of people don't know to check there.
Yeah, like open the email, guys. Like, come on, it's one click. Like, I know you get a lot of junk mail, but when you see FanShares lock it in, you need to click on it.
There we go. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thank you for coming on again. It was good to talk. I guess when the golf season swings back around and we get into some good tournaments, I'll have you on again to talk with Evan about some golf. And Steve, as always, thank you for joining me and everybody else who decides to hop on. You can follow Steve at The Real Holupka and check out his stuff on Rotoballer, Fantasy Report, et cetera. And you can hit up bogeyfreedfs.com to see the articles that I'm cranking out. I got to get through my game-by-game breakdown. I'm up to like 2,500 words now, and I have 4 more games to write. So
awesome.
I've got quite a long night ahead of me. So with that, thanks again for joining us, and good luck this week, guys. See you.
Thanks.